That would be Dia and Evelyn. All right, the gang is all here. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules, out of your living circumstances. And I'm thanking all those in advance who will avail themselves to be part of our family conversation about relationships. One of the things I do in ministry is try to focus on a different aspect of my experience as disciples and my experience as people. And that requires kind of moving around, if you will, in terms of our different aspects of our lives. While there's a kind of a central focus for the month, we're always open to other ways that the Spirit of God will move us. So I want to thank you so much. Let's start with a word of prayer, and then we'll get into it, into where we are. All right. We thank you, Lord, for your grace and your kindness towards us. We thank you for family. We thank you for this opportunity to just talk together as a family and to join with our Facebook family relationships. We thank you for your anointing assigned for this moment and for the amazing way that you bring us together across lines of geography and time and space and perspectives. We ask you, Lord, to direct us, allow your spirit of wisdom and revelation to please be in full effect and help us to be sensitive and directed and led. We ask you, Lord, to please impact someone's life, someone who's hearing and seeing, that they would be encouraged and inspired in some way. This we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I want to encourage you all to also share with your friends because you are influencers and encouragers in your own light, and I want to ensure that you own that for what it is. So let me thank you again for being on. What's going on, Dia?
How you doing, Dad?
Grateful. How are you?
I'm blessed. I'm doing very well. That was good.
All right. Where's your wife?
She's on the phone with her mother right now. She's in Mexico, so she's just catching up with her real quick. She'll be here in a moment, though.
All right. All right. Appreciate you making that available. And here comes my sister.
Hey, girl, hey.
What's going on, sis? Why are you looking like Angela Davis? Like, what? The struggle continues. What's up? Why you?
Well, ha! Didn't know we were showing up and showing out. Wish I had gotten the memo.
Told you, brother, had wig.
All right.
Right on.
Well, family, this is my family. This. It is what it is. I'm proud and grateful to have my family on. I'm certain I will pay I'll be paying a huge price for this later on, as they probably try to say that I owe them big time. But I'm grateful for family. And in this month of a focus on relationships, I can think of no other relationships to really begin with than my own. And then the ones that I have developed and nurtured as close to home. And I guess part of, I think, the dynamic here is also relate the fact, hey, Tarika, God bless you. Tarika is one of our members, and she's saying hello to you all. So say hi to Tarika.
Hi.
Good afternoon. God bless you.
Everybody says hello. Amen. And so we, our family, like any family, has all of the various dynamics, twists and turns. There's no special anything to my family simply because I happen to be a pastor, or as some would say, a man of God. Some would argue otherwise. But that's all up for debate. That's all up for debate, depending on the situation, depending on who you speak to. But as long as my crew has been fooled, it's okay. and as long as they have dazzle juice all over them, so they can't really see the real thing. So we greet you all in Jesus' name. Thankful just to have the kinds of relationships where you can call on your children. I don't take that for granted because all relationships go through changes and challenges. And I've been led to kind of call this experience, this emphasis and focus this month, Friends with Benefits. It's kind of based on just the title of that 2011 movie, just the title, not necessarily the premise. But there's one important caveat though, and that is that all relationships that are meaningful have to have an aspect of family, of friendship. Friendship being the base and the most critical, the critical foundation, if you will. And so our objective during this month and during this week, if you will, is just talk about how you value friendship and how friendship factored into your marriages and your relationships and even into breakups, however that is. And I'll begin just so I can kind of put it out there, because one would think, and I remember going through divorce and thinking, how in the world can I continue to pastor and lead a congregation and lead people and talk about relationships? And I'm dealing with one that failed, if you will, that broke up. The three of you, my children were there to watch all of it in all of its horror and splendor. And you weathered that storm. And I'm sure that there's some dynamics and challenges that you faced as a result of that. Yeah, all of that. Good, how do you say, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Amen. Of all of it. And so so I oftentimes wondered, but then as time went on, I began to realize that oftentimes mistakes are among the best ways. Let me just make a disclaimer to all of those who are watching. My children are really grown, but sometimes in public, they just really don't know how to behave themselves. I really don't understand that. It's not genetic. It's just a part of it's something that. So I knew going into this the risk I was taking, but I figured that the anointing of the Holy Spirit would somehow kind of factor into this. So
that's the great
be that as it may, I want to ask. And in each relationship, having had not one but two experiences with that, having played a role in both of those, and my role and learning from those, and in terms of recognizing what it takes to really develop a relationship, has brought me to this one clear fact, and that is that relationships are founded on friendship, and that if the friendship is solid, then the relationship will be solid. And if there's any takeaway, I would offer in this whole enterprise and conversation, and that would be that that you would embrace just that one factor. So having said that, let me ask you all to introduce yourselves and to say what you want to say in terms of way of introduction, and what besides the fact that I asked you, what it was that sort of drew you to this opportunity to talk about relationships. Anybody can start.
I guess since I'm the oldest, I'll go first.
Makes sense.
As did the whoopings. I'll take the first lick.
Yikes.
It's gonna be like this all
I had to keep reminding myself I asked for this.
You did.
I'm just so
no feedbacks.
I'm the third, Lewis Logan the third. I am recently living in New Orleans, California. I'm Morehouse man, shout out. 2012 graduate history major. Currently a teacher in New Orleans area. I teach 5th grade history. I was a history major as well. I'm married to Chantel. We have 3 children, Michael, Lewis, and Anaya. And I'm happy to be here. I've been married for 8 years. I've been friends with my wife for almost 10 years. So yeah, that's it, right?
Thank you.
Jalik.
I can speak for myself, thanks. Anywho, my name is Jalik. I am the middle child and the only girl.
Absolutely.
I also live in the New Orleans area called Destrehan. It's like maybe 30 minutes outside the city. I currently work with youth that have been court involved, and I work to connect them with community services like counseling or housing, just things to try to facilitate their expulsion from the court system as expediently as possible. I have 2 children, Caleb and Eliza. I was married in 2013. We knew each other for about a year, a little less. And when I became pregnant, we decided to get married. It was like, oops, let's put it under covenant. Quick, before we get the baby, let's put it under covenant. You know, so that worked out well. Got divorced in 6 years. So yeah, that was that.
But you can laugh about it.
Well, we can laugh now. And we were laughing a little bit during, but you know, we're here now. So that marriage lasted about 6 years, ended in 2018, separated, officially divorced in 2019. And we're figuring the co-parenting thing out. And now I am single and prayerfully ready to mingle. I am engaged in a friendship right now. And yeah.
Let me find out.
You know.
That's not funny, Nicole.
What? I didn't do anything.
It's not funny. I see you laughing. Oh, and Lewis, we want to meet your wife. Have her introduce herself.
You
Thank you, Jalik, and I appreciate your candor. And you look cute, by the way.
Thanks, Dad.
Absolutely.
How do you want to do this?
Hi, sister.
Hello.
Family, it's live on Facebook.
What's happening?
She's saying hello.
Name, whatever else you want to say. Introduce yourself. And Ms. Tarika says hello, Lewis, by the way. She says social studies. She gives you a shout out for social studies.
Okay. Hello. I am Chantel Logan, married to Lewis Logan III. I am a small business owner, LMA Designs, where we personalize any and everything you need.
We'll put the link in the captions later.
Yes. Yes.
Put it in there.
I'm also a substitute teacher, also a dance teacher for summer camp. I have we share 3 children. I like them a lot, you know.
All right.
Sometimes. That's about it. I don't know.
Okay. Thank you very much. Absolutely. Nicole or Dia, whichever one.
I'll go. Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole. I am actually Dr. Logan's little sister. I'm 31. Right now, I work in a position as a clinical social worker. So I actually facilitate family meetings where we're discussing how to support families in regards to the care of their children. So we're really focused on being family centered and relationship centered. So it's actually funny that you asked me to do this. I am not married. I do not have children, but I have a loving friend. We've been together about a year. We met in undergrad. No, he is a sweetheart. We met in undergrad, and we attempted to date in 2013, but because my confidence wasn't where it was supposed to be, I had cut it off, but we stayed in touch, and years later, here we are. Yeah.
Yes, and we're waiting for approval. However, yes, Diop. And
right on. That's awesome. So, Asa Bomani Diop Logan. I'm here with my wife, who's munching down right now, unfortunately, but she's right here beside me. This is my wife.
Hi.
The third of the Logan lineage. Last but not least, of course. I'm in Texas. I work in TD Ameritrade in the brokerage field. We house the transition of different accounts between different contra firms and institutions. My wife and I have been married now for 3 going on 4 years. We've been together officially 7 years, and we met laughing and we haven't stopped since. We started as friends. Essentially, as well, we wanted to make sure that we were integrated with everything, but we also started by putting God in the middle of everything that we decided when it came to relationships. So let's see, we'll be celebrating our fourth year in September, and praise God, we haven't had to worry about leaving the honeymoon phase that everybody talks about, but you know, we keep God in the middle of everything. We keep ourselves constantly laughing at each other. But, you know, it's joy. You know, it's the kind of relationship where you feel joyous about it. It doesn't get old. You know, it's just keeping God and keeping everything light. So, you know, we deal with our rough times, but we do it the right way. We make sure that we come out stronger than before. So it's been a blessing. But this is my wife, Evelyn, Miss Consuelo.
Hi. Nice
Hi,
to meet
Evo.
you. Hi.
Gracias.
A little bit about yourself.
Introduce yourself.
My name is Evo Logan. Evo Lopez Logan, actually. I'm gonna turn 31 in a week. So I'm Ace's wife and living life. So yeah.
And what do you do?
I am a business analyst for a financial technology company, and I've been there with them for a couple of years now.
Fantastic. Congratulations. And congratulations on your being together. Many couples begin to have challenges in terms of being together after the first couple of years. And so both of you have already overcome what is statistically a challenge for many couples. It's almost like most businesses, small businesses go tank up, belly up after a couple of years. But let me ask both of the couples, and then we'll go to those of us who are single. What was an important factor in your deciding to be together, and then what is it that has helped to keep you together? Each of you should answer.
All right. So
I'm above you actually, but okay.
You're below me on my
I'm
camera.
above you.
You're still below me though. You're under me.
Oh boy.
All right, little brother.
okay. All right. So
You wanna go?
you go.
All right, so kind of what led it all was pure conversation. Communication. I was at a point in college where I was definitely enjoying life at Morehouse in Atlanta. But I got to a point where relationships began to be very dense. and I kind of gave up on trying to find love, find the right girl. And I kind of gave up on it, was just doing me. And then all of a sudden, this one right here bumps into me. And it really started with a pure conversation about my aspirations, her aspirations. And we legit talked that night until what, 5 a.m.?
Yep.
5 a.m. I walked out, said my goodbyes, and in midst of the hallway, guy hit me and said, "You need to go back." So I turned around, knocked on the door at 5 a.m. and I said, "I'm not leaving until I get your phone number." And she gave me a phone number. I think I called her the next day.
Away. I thought he was a psycho.
Whatever. It worked clearly. So we've been riding ever since. It hasn't been always the easiest, but I think my deciding factor to stick it through was seeing how you kind of your example of that, and kind of how like your situation kind of transpired. So I didn't want to repeat. So I was not going to let anything happen there to deter that. Sorry, I was going to be honest.
So well, I mean,
that was my motivation. That was my motivation to see it through. Like, I didn't want what we went through. I didn't want my children to go through or me to go through. So that was my dedication, determination to not let Chantel go anywhere. Like, there was times where she was over it, and I laid right there on the middle of the floor until she acknowledged me. There was times where we were fight. I would not leave the bed. You mad all you want, but I ain't going nowhere. So it was more so kind of like,
you were like the Jennifer Holiday kind of thing.
You could say that.
Okay.
You could say that. I wasn't going nowhere.
All right. I'm getting so we're thankful again for having Sister Terica. Sister Brenda Joyce Henderson says definitely enjoying the presentation. Sister Rosa Williamson, bless you. Good to see you this evening. And Sister Elder Henderson says she appreciates your openness, Jaleel.
Real.
Now you're just being transparent. Anything you want to add to that, Chantel? You don't have to. I'm just asking. Just giving you offering the opportunity.
No, I don't have. Well, I will say that our glue that's helped us stick together has been God. My sister-in-law actually helped me when we were really going through, and she was like, "You have to focus on God and not necessarily focus on him." And when I focus on God and I didn't see him,
what are you doing, Jaleel?
Can somebody black out her picture? Can somebody just black out her screen? Turn her video camera
Thank you,
off.
Jaleel.
But I just was going to ignore it. I was like, what's going on?
she was like,
What in the world? This girl's pretty. It's like a glamour shot. So silly. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry, family. The signal's going bad. I think I'm gonna have to. Look.
no.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so you all have been at a place where it was like, we're just not. And you were determined, having been traumatized by the breakup of your own family between your mom and me, that you were not going to have that happen to you.
Correct. Yes, sir.
All right. How you doing, Sister Mary? Thank you for being a part of our conversation. And thank you for those who are on the phone as well. We are talking about relationships, and I'm grateful to have my family on, my children, my sister, and friends who are a part of our conversation. And those of you who are here, we're just having just a family conversation about their impressions. We did not doctor this. I did not prescript anything. I believe that keeping it real allows ministry to go forth. Again, I cannot be held responsible for the behavior of my family. I'm not sure what level of intoxication or any other kind of influences they're under.
You know what?
In addition to the Holy Spirit. But however, we'll just go on what we have. And we're thankful for your transparency. Diop, anything how has it been? How did you all get together, and what was it that brought you together, and what has kept you together so far?
So kind of similar to Lewis, I was at a point in my life where I was just living life and I was going through the motions, and I've been trying to get myself together with God a little bit better. And I remember I had a night where I was at home with my roommates, and I was in my room by myself, and I just had that come into myself moment where I just realized that my life had to be meant for way more than what I was giving myself at that point. So I just gave a simple prayer, which turned out to be a prophetic word, but I prayed and I just asked God if he would send me somebody that would help me get my life back together. I give it all back to him, and that I get myself straightened out and I would stop doing the things I was doing at the time. So I said that simple prayer, and I was at that point, where relationships didn't really, they didn't really seem like anything that ever lasted. I didn't really believe in true love anymore at that point in my life. And to be honest with you, when I prayed that prayer, I didn't want to be selfish. I didn't want to ask God to give me a girl or a woman or anything like that. I just said, God, send me somebody. You choose. I put myself at the mercy of God, because just like David, when he was going to get when God told him to choose between 3 different punishments, he was like, let me fall into the hands of God rather than the hands of man. So I kind of had that moment. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna fall into your hands, God. You choose whoever you want to send, either be a mentor or a girlfriend or whatever. But you send me somebody, and to help me get my life straight, and I'll give it all back to you. And so that's exactly what he did. I used to work at IHOP years ago, waiting tables by UNT, University of North Texas, which is pretty much like a really prominent college in Denton, Texas. So that IHOP's closed now, but back in that time, we both met waiting tables together. And initially, sister girl here had no interest in me at all.
What? That's crazy.
Because I was a bit of a flirt. And since I was in a college town,
a Logan bloodline.
Since I was in a college town, with all the college girls around, she saw me as a bit of the flirtatious player type. But one of the things that really helped in breaking down our relationship together was the fact that she began to see through the facade and began to see, the man underneath everything that was just dealing with a lot of things, though I was able to show or portray that I had it all together on the outside. On the inside, I was still trying to figure out life, still trying to figure out where I was going to go. I wasn't in college at the time. I'd taken the semester off, and I was trying to pursue a career in acting and modeling at the time. So, and my family knows I've had my run-ins with that over the years. But
you're trying to figure it out.
Yep. But I was pursuing that at the time. So God had other plans. He ended up introducing the two of us. He put my acting career on hold for a while, and he brought us together. We started dating. One of the things that really intrigued me about her when we first started talking was the fact that we both mentioned that we were pastors' kids. So we both were raised in churches, albeit different denominations. We were still raised in church. We both had a love for God that even though we weren't living right at the time, it was the thing that began to help form our relationship as we continue to grow and help each other to get closer to God and start going to church more. She's encouraged me a lot. She's helped break off a lot of my past issues. In the grand scheme of all the relationships I've had, she's the first person I've ever dated who, actually saw me as I am, who's actually been there for me when I needed somebody. There was a time where I was really sick, and she took care of me. Like, she didn't just, oh, I hope you feel better, or I'll stop by to check on you. She literally was there to take care of me, and I've never had that before. I've never had somebody care about me to that extent. And so, from her background and from my background, it really brought us together more. And then God just did the rest. So I planted the seed, we planted the seed, and God watered and brought the harvest. So it's been awesome.
All right. Evelyn?
So like, I can attest to what he's saying. When I first met him, I wasn't a fan. I thought he was conceited. I thought he was full of not himself. So, and I was in college at that time. I was starting to get my business degree, and I wasn't looking to, just date anybody. But Lord had other plans. So the Lord had other plans that we had the opportunity to get to know each other better, and we saw past, the whole college attraction and everything. And I got to know him as a person, and I think that's what really led to, a really awesome friendship at the beginning. And the fact that, we're both from different races, different cultures, in the beginning of our relationship that caused a lot of issues on my side of the family because, a lot of my people are immigrants. So they weren't used to the whole interracial relationship. And so I went through a couple of culture shocks along the way, but again, we saw past the color, we saw past, where we came from, and just saw as each other as two people that, cared for each other and wanted to have a together. And God put everything, he disciplined us, showed us the way, guided us. And, he really, both of us have worked to bring out the best in each other. Friendship wise, social life. Everything. Like, God just knows when two people are paired up and they truly have a heart for God and the foundation as Jesus as the cornerstone in the relationship. That when our foundation was right, then we could build a better relationship. Doesn't matter how many years you've been married or how many years what God can do. God can do the impossible. Give him something small, he can turn it into something bigger. So we've been very blessed to be able to see that blessing in our life come to fruition.
That's why I love her.
Absolutely. And let me kind of say this, and then I'm gonna ask Nicole, my sister, to come on. I want to kind of say this to everybody who's watching. And by the way, there are those who are on the line that watched you or brought from Savannah. Sean, Christopher says hello. It's like, wow, look at Ace. I can't believe the transformation there. And Stephanie Levert, who is also a member in Savannah. And so there are people who watched us. And one of the things interestingly enough, about being a pastor is that many people kind of watch you from the outside looking in, and they think that everything is perfect. And sometimes there's a lot of pain and I guess you might call it alienation inside, because you're almost having to put on this face of the way things are supposed to look, but then there's really a lot of pain within. But to God be the glory, you all survived and really thrived in the midst of it. And I believe that even in brokenness, Sister Street says hello as well. God bless you, Sister Street. I believe that even in brokenness, God has a way of continuing to heal and keep us mended together. I remember having, as it were, a vision and a dream that, I would grow up with my children. And, I know we married kind of young, right out of college, as did those of you who followed suit to some degree, married out of college almost immediately. And if you'll recall, I tried to talk you out of doing it because I didn't want you to repeat what I experienced.
You talking to me?
It wasn't.
All of us.
It wasn't.
He's made conversations to try to.
It wasn't personal. It was the fact that I didn't want you to repeat what happened with me 15 years later to discover that things weren't whatever. But it is what it is. And my prayer is that as you continue to be and establish your friendship and remember what the friendship, Proverbs 18:24 says, he that would be a friend must show himself to be friendly. Amen. And that they're friends that stick closer than brothers. We're also reminded of the relationship of David and Jonathan and how they were knit together at the heart. And these were two brothers who were kind of torn apart by controversy, but because of the love of God that they had for each other, they were able to be supportive, mutually supportive. David honored his word to Jonathan after Jonathan's death, and to Jonathan's descendants by continuing to support his descendants. and be faithful in his word despite the circumstances. And so I'm grateful again to have my sister, Nicole. Nicole and I, we've known each other, since 2012.
Yes.
And actually my son knew Nicole before I did on Facebook. They actually met on Facebook some kind of way. And that was by virtue of just a whole different kind of story there. But
hey, Felicia.
Again, by the grace of God, Nicole's a beautiful woman, great friend and sister, and friendship has to be a part of siblings. You have to be friends as siblings as well, and you have to respect what being siblings means in terms of being individuals. So say hello to us if you don't mind, Nicole, and tell us how it was in terms of becoming a part of a family that you knew about, but then, you know, how was that for you? And how did friendship, the aspect of friendship really factor into your being so connected in with us and we with you?
Lewis, what did I tell you? Thank you. All right. So
what happened?
We had a conversation. We had a conversation prior to this. But as far as family, if you ask my mom, she'll say that I always bragged about you, Robert, and John. Like, I just talked about, oh, my brothers, they do this, they do that. My daddy told me they do this and da-da-da. And this was from me being like real little. But there was kind of an emptiness because it's like, I know so much about them, but do they know about me? Like, what do they know, if they know anything? And I think that emptiness, and led to some other things, but nonetheless. And I will say that Lewis reaching out to me on Facebook, which I still have the initial message. I just thought, okay, I'm meeting another family member. I was like, okay, cool. Well, Mom, hey, we getting some pieces. And then when we talked, and you know, he was just asking general questions. And when he was like, I know who you are, like my heart sunk, because it was like, I don't know how he's going to receive me. I don't know how I'm going to be received. I think that was my biggest concern. Like, this can go two ways. They can say, you know what, she's here, let's figure it out. Or they could say, she's here and we still don't care. Have a good day. And that was really the reality. I mean, you laugh, but I know of some situations where that's exactly how it went, unfortunately. And it was interesting because not only did I have to navigate my feelings, but I had to understand your perspective. I had to understand that point of view and be open to, okay, well, maybe not right now. It's okay. And even when we talked on the phone initially, I could tell you were hesitant because you were still trying to process, and I had to respect that. But I think that the day that we actually met, just the look in your face, like you held on to me really like tight, and I don't think you remember that. And for that moment, it felt like wholeness to me. And just kind of, it was kind of like those pieces that I needed. They were coming together at the right time. Little did we know.
Jalika, please, can you please? Jalika.
I'm gonna go. I'm sorry. I'm going.
No, Jalika's just being silly. She just can't help it, man. I think
pray for her.
I don't know.
Please pray for her. Yeah.
But, yeah, she's the one. She's the one.
You're doing fine, Nicole. You're doing fine. You're doing fine. It's just my daughter.
And even with meeting Jalika in New York, like, it was one of those things where stuff just started falling in place, and you just kind of like, ooh, Jesus. Okay, so you asked for this, and ooh, girl, now it's time for you to process it. It's time for you to figure out how those family dynamics fit and what building a relationship looks like with a family that, you know, is just getting accustomed to or just meeting you for the first time. And it was, it was interesting because not only did I have to navigate my feelings, but I had to understand your perspective. And for that moment, it felt like wholeness to me. And just kind of, it was kind of like those pieces that I needed. They were coming together at the right time. And it's been a little awkward at times, but at times it's been phenomenal. Like, Lewis, even when I called you and told you about my boyfriend and I was comfortable talking to you about him because I knew that your wisdom and your years, there was insight that you could give me. And I needed that. I didn't need like the really protective, big brother piece. You give me that anyway. But I also needed a friend. I needed somebody to really look at it differently. And I cherish that because it's necessary. Being friends with your siblings is, what did I do?
Which one are you talking about?
Tell my daddy.
I said,
Clearly.
Oh, okay, cool. I was confused.
All right. Little Lewis for me. So when it came to like really building relationships, I had to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I think we all had to, because it wasn't going away. It's here. So let's figure out how we're going to navigate that. Let's figure out what the relationships look like going forward. It's been a ride, but it's been fun. It's been a ride. It's been
especially the first few months that we were aware of each other, because that was also the time they had passed. And so that was another kind of a abrupt adjustment that we all had to sort of bristle through. And we had questions, but we just had to kind of deal with the fact that there's some answers we just wouldn't have. We would have to be our own answers. And so this is it's been quite a challenge for us to work through all those things. And we're getting some responses. Elder Henderson says that Asa said well in terms of your wife, Evo, was really helpful in talking about the divide between cultures and how you learn how to navigate that. And she also says, Nicole, you're beautiful. She appreciates your hairdo. You're rocking that. Yeah. And I'm gonna just ignore this statement about how Jalika and I need a daddy outing or something on Zoom because we're acting kind of funny here. So I'm just gonna, sometimes even people that are part of your audience, you just gotta sort of ignore certain things. But we're grateful still for just the reality. And unfortunately, for some reason, my internet connection is going kind of crazy here. I'm at the church, and it's usually excellent, but for some reason, it's been going kind of crazy the last couple of times we've been on. In terms of moving forward, Jalik, and you, unfortunately, you've experienced what I experienced in terms of the dissolution of your marriage. And then I'm gonna come back to you, Nicole, in terms of what you're looking for. What is it that you are building in terms of your friendship with, what's your gentleman friend's name?
Are you talking
Nicole,
to me?
What's your gentleman friend's name?
Name is Terrence.
Oh yes, Terrence. And yes, and Jalik, how did you kind of deal with what you saw was the dissolution of the friendship and relationship and such? How did you kind of navigate that?
With Kajobi? All right, we're gonna do this. So he did. He asked for it. We're gonna do this. Okay. So one of the biggest takeaways that I took from your marriage, Daddy, and the divorces was what it did to the people involved. I saw a change in. See, this is funny because I'm trying to be diplomatic, but that's not who I am. So this is difficult. That I just saw what it did. The spirit changed. I saw someone who was full of life and love, and how anger and bitterness took root, and it changed it. And there's this underscore always of just anger and you can tell it's not intentional. It's just there, and it's just not being dealt with. And honestly, this is going to sound super lame, but Moana, that part where I got to talk about it all the time because it's so real. Like, Disney is lit. Listen, when she took the heart, and then women, I think that we're naturally nurturers. Like, everything we touch, when we're loved, we're vessels for that. We bring it back, And so I think when we experience betrayal and stuff like that, is almost like Tafiti, y'all, like it takes our heart. And then you saw how after she didn't have her heart, everything went bad. Like things started dying. It was death, and what was used for life became death. And until her heart returned to her, and it was from another woman, someone who saw her, returned her heart, and then she was able to nurture and love again. And so that's what I saw. And even when I first started being with Kajobi, I was determined that I would not do that. I would not become that. I would not allow bitterness and anger to take root in my heart and change who I am. I always wanted to be able to love freely and fully. And so when we separated, it was very difficult, very difficult. There was a feeling of release and relief. Like the marriage was hard, but there was infidelity. So there was no question about whether or not I had to stay. And I even struggled with that, to be honest. I was like, I do want to try to work it out. Like, we're young, And so I felt like God gave me a scripture, and I'm sorry, I can't remember it now, but it was basically about, giving it a year. And ironically, Louisiana law says you have to wait a year anyway. So there was like a tree, and Jesus said for him to give it a year. And if it didn't produce food, so let it die.
It was a fig tree, and the dresser, the vine dresser, was like, Lord, don't cut it down. Let me dung around it, let me dig around it, and give it another.
And so I got into the word, and it was also ironic because the very day that we separated, I found out about the infidelity, and we separated. My church was doing 21 days of fasting and prayer. So every single day I found myself at the church surrounded by people who loved me and wanted to speak life into me. And so it was like effortless. I just immediately went into that. And I think now if I hadn't had that around me already, I can't imagine how I would have responded. But God already had things around me. So it was just natural. I pressed into him, and so I would pray for Kajobi. I would send him scriptures, and nothing grew. There was no fruit, no matter what I did. And we would try, and it just wouldn't work. And he was just determined that this was the path he wanted to walk. And in thinking about, I agree with you, Lewis, there was also the thing where I didn't want my kids to go through what we went through. Seeing the fighting and stuff and feeling like you wanted to fix it and you can't, all that kind of stuff. I didn't want them to see that. I didn't want them to have to experience that and try to metabolize it. So it was important to me that we were friends, and it was important to me that we interacted in front of them in a friendly way. So when he would do things, when he would say things, and he really tried it. Y'all, he really tried it. I mean, he really tried it. But God. But
God.
And I continued to push in. I had my pastor, and it was ironic too. Eliza started going to my pastor's wife. And so every morning I would be there. And there were times when I ugly cried to them, and they were there for me. It was just funny how God had that already in place. I just had to go into it. So I had those people around me, and every time that he would do something, I would choose to forgive. I would see an altar in my mind's eye. I would see an altar, and I would see myself putting this situation on the altar and letting the aroma from it burning be a blessing to God. And it sounds crazy, but that really, seeing that in my mind really helped me to release the things. I wouldn't hold on to it. And I had self-righteous. I had every right to be angry, and I would choose instead to hold on to God, because I couldn't hold on to both. I realized I couldn't hold on to my anger and to the Lord. I had to choose. And I'd already seen an example of what happens when you hold on to anger instead. And I knew I didn't want that. And sometimes it felt crappy at first, but the fruit of it is now I'm able to interact. We joke and play all the time. I mean, it's seamless. The kids don't have to see any fighting ever. Drop them off. You need me to bring them, I'll bring them. There's no issue. There's no expectation. My needs, I know I go to God for them. I don't go to him for them. So if the kids need something, I have my family here, but also I have my church. I don't have any needs that he has to meet. And that's something that God had to make clear to me in the process. I also don't have any baggage, not any bad baggage. I mean, some baggage, I'm sure, but none that I'm taking into my next relationship. No, you know what I mean? None of that. I'm able to receive love and give it fully and easily, freely. And I think that I think that's what God did. He showed me you guys so that I could do it differently. And that's
so you saw one experience and decided to operate differently. Now, I don't remember. Well, I guess you all would see things from a different perspective because you were and you were a part of what you saw was really a breakup of your family. And for me, it was a breakup of a relationship. And my situation, it was similar to what you're talking about, Julie. And it was, even though things weren't a different kind of way in terms of just how it was talked about, but I had to sort of, I don't know, I guess I didn't make the same choice that Lewis made. I sort of, I felt like maybe it would work out. You give somebody space and maybe they'll come back, but it didn't work out that way. And it just, so you make different choices based on what things are and where you feel. And so you do what you feel like you need to do. And I'm grateful, one of the things I'm grateful for is that we remain friends. And again, the foundation of friendship, we were the ones that kind of hung together most of the time. It was the three of you and me. And so that was the cement, I think, that helped me to stay focused as well, in spite of the dissolution of my relationship with my wife, your mother. It was about the fact that, these are my children, this is my crew, and you all hung with me a lot. You went to school with me. You were, I kept you with me for a lot of the time. And how devastating it was to not have you as you had been, but also to figure out through faith how to just be present in that. That song, "You Just Stand," was so powerful for me in the midst of all that. So one of the common denominators I see in the fact that you all have constantly been able to knit a relationship with your spouses and with yourselves is your faith in God. You're drawing on your faith, drawing on your commitment to growing your faith has really been the stronghold for each of you. Can you, beginning with you, Nicole, would you kind of elaborate on that? And we just have a few more moments. We're almost at the end of an hour. I want to respect your time. I know Julie, I know Diop and Evelyn have to go in a minute. How did your faith really kind of give you strength to deal with all that you dealt with, Nicole?
You said my faith? Mm-hmm. Because I understood that it put a mirror up to me. It made me look at some of the things that I was doing, and it made me take responsibility for some of the actions that I was choosing to follow through with, even though I knew better, even though I knew actually some relationships were not well. And some of the things that occurred in them actually left some lasting scars, but I always had faith that God would make it better. And it wasn't it. I knew that wasn't it. Because I've had some real tumultuous relationships, but it kind of gave me okay, you up against the ropes, but it's not over. Like the fight is not over. Still have some fighting you. You still have something in you. So even if this doesn't work, that doesn't necessarily mean it's over, but it also gave me time to say, okay, so let's sit down and let's focus on us for a little bit, so that we don't have to keep in this same cycle. And I had to start to be obedient with some things so that I could change the course of things.
So you had to make some different choices in order to have different outcomes.
Yes, Lord, I did. Yeah.
What it sounds like what you had to do was really be your own best friend sometimes. You had to be a friend to yourself.
Yeah, and I had to do the work. Faith you need a mustard seed of faith, right? But faith without works is dead. So you have to do something. Like you can have the faith there, but if you're not willing to do anything to groom or mature your relationship, then what's the point? And you have to start with that relationship that you have with yourself first. In order for you to even be in a relationship with anybody else, you have to love on you. So then you have a strong foundation. And when a person comes along, they're adding to, they're not bringing something that you didn't have. And then you feel like your whole foundation is rocky, because when they leave, that foundation is gone again.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's right. Evelyn and Diop, I know you have to go in a second. Give us some, before you go, some, I guess, at least three keys to what helps you all today move forward together.
Yeah, as for the 3 keys that kept y'all together.
There's at least 3. I'm not sure there are more, but what 3 things help you all to kind of? I mean, I'm sure your relationship has grown as you've continued on together and work together. What changes have you seen in each other? Maybe that's a better question. What changes have you seen in each other?
Is that for us?
Yes, I know you have.
Oh.
I know you have to go.
Oh, that's cool.
Actually, my meeting got pushed back a little bit in the middle of this.
Oh.
I got a
Look
message.
at God.
Lord.
Look at Jesus.
No.
I got-
Yeah. All right.
I'm just saying. So take your time.
I'm sorry, guys.
That's my brother. I love him.
Dad, you have nothing to say about this?
I do not. I just
So the 3 things.
all I can do is smile.
So the 3 things. Thank you. The 3 things that has kept us together. Number 1 has been dependency on God.
You're welcome.
Number 2 has been it's been a phrase. It's a phrase that Asa brought into our relationship early on, and it's really made a difference. It's mean what you say and say what you mean, or say what you mean what you say. So just to elaborate a little bit, women tend to sometimes use like encrypted messages, and sometimes men just goes over their head. So it has really helped our communication on my side and on his side to say, it's like, what do you want from me? Because I can't read your mind. So we've actually had to have conversations where maybe we don't always see eye to eye. And, we take our breaks, we come back, and, then we have a clear discussion as to what are we trying to get out of this conversation. We've had talks about, communication about our finances. Where do we want to be at? What are the goals that we want to set for our family? What is the kind of family that we want to have? Like, what kind of characteristics do we want to pass on to our future family? And how do we want to be seen? So communication around that is really important because, it's not just about me or it's not just about him, but it's about both of us and the perspective that we're both bringing into the relationship. At the end of it, bringing it to God in prayer, because here in our house, we say the last word belongs to God. We can plan and we can want things, but the last word belongs to God. Have his will and not our will. His will be done over ours. I think the 3rd thing that I would say is very important is laughter. It's very important because we want to, even if it's a stupid joke or something, but like that. That's weird. Anyways, but laughter is important. Laughing, sometimes we have to, I have to find out if he's laughing at me or with me, but that's not the case. So
whichever makes you happiest, baby. It's whichever makes you happiest.
Still have the best result.
You leave it up for interpretation.
Or when Ace trying to dance salsa and it's just not working out. But the point of it is like,
I eat salsa.
The point of it is laughter. It's very, very important. We were walking in the mall one time, and I remember seeing a very put together couple, and you see the couple, they're very sophisticated. You can tell they've been together for a while. And I turned around to Lacey, I'm like, we're never going to be that couple. We're going to have our quirks. We're going to have our moments. But the goal that we have, with laughter, communication, and, above all, overall, God, is being ourselves, because we're living in a generation where couples who are dating think that, to keep the relationship, they have to have a sex life. or to keep the relationship, they have to go over and beyond when the partner doesn't do enough. You know, it's not 50-50. So we live in a generation whose mentality about relationships has been really corrupted with everything going on in the world. And it's about going back to the Word of God and defining what that means and how to be an example and a testimony to not just our future children, but to our nephews, our nieces, or our cousins, and to say, you know, we choose to live and be a relationship in the eyes of God, how He designed it from the very beginning, instead of falling to the peer pressure of today's world.
Man.
Thank you very much. Anything you wanted to add something, Asa?
Yes, just to add on to what my wife is saying too, number one thing, and I can't stress it enough, God has to be the middle of your relationship. It's not going to work if God is the glue. He's the one that knew you and knit you, and He's the one that's organizing everything you do. So like one of the first things we did when we were dating and before we even decided to get married was we made sure that we started our relationship with God in the middle. When we first met, we weren't holding completely right before the eyes of God. And when we got engaged, we made the mature and conscious decision to start over and to make sure that when we started over, being that even though we didn't start right, we kind of got to the point of being closer to God. We wanted to make sure that we started our marriage and our relationship the right way and kept God in the middle. So keep God in the middle of everything, every decision you make, and just make sure that that is the cornerstone of your relationship, because if it weren't for God, none of us would be here in the first place. You know, it's His story.
So translated, initially y'all were shacking.
For a minute.
Okay. But then you decided to
look,
kind of like
that's under the blood, sir, so we're not going to comment on that. So what I will say,
I understand what you're saying. Well, it wasn't.
Look here, we got it right with God, and it's automatic.
You had to,
like I said, under the blood. But the point.
I mean, I get that, but just keeping it real.
Yeah, under the blood.
Yeah.
But one very important thing that I will say is I told Asa this, is that never stop chasing each other. Always, every single day, use the opportunity to continue to show love to one another. Say thank you, show appreciation.
Right. Respect.
Men show love in a different way, and so do women, but it's about being there for each other and saying, hey, I love you. Don't forget that. I got your back every single day.
Now, let me just say this. I don't want it misunderstood. I'm not trying to put you on blast. I just want us to recognize that we all start somewhere and we grow to a certain place. So none of us are perfect, and all of us, and it is in its I think it's real for you all to come on and just be real, because a lot of people are struggling with that. A lot of people are making similar kinds of decisions. You may be speaking to somebody, a couple right now, that might be saying, oh, we're grappling with that. You don't know who you're reaching right now and how you have really, helped somebody by virtually saying, we were there, but then we made a different decision together. Because Amos 3:3 says, how can two walk together unless they're in agreement? And even the grace of God gave you the opportunity to kind of get things on the right track, even though you may have started one way, in one sense. God gave you the impetus and the direction to begin to put that in the right place. And you were friends through it. You communicated through your different feelings and whatever else you dealt with until you got to a place where you felt like things were right. Like in Ecclesiastes 4:11, two help to keep each other warm, but then the third cord makes that cord unbreakable. And so with the infusion of that growth, you started at one point and you went to another point, but you did it together. And that's what knit you together as well. So I don't want anybody to confuse anything thinking I'm trying to throw you all under the bus. I mean, everybody on here has made some different decisions and different ways, but we're not gonna, and part of the impetus for being on here was to be, help people and be transparent, even with the good, how's that mean, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so that's what enables, I think, our testimony allows for deliverance, for people to be delivered from fear, from some type of captivity of being, feeling like they're captured in something, or that there's no way they can recover, or what have you. And so by the grace of God, you are examples, the two of you, Evo and Asa, are examples of how God's grace has brought you thus far and has blessed you. And so I appreciate that very much, your transparency. Jalik or Asa or
I want to add 2 more points real quick.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Based off of that too. So I'm not the kind of person that gets embarrassed very easily. Nor do I feel a lot of shame for where I've been, because I realize, like you're saying, we've all have our stories, and God has brought us out of a lot of things. And for a lot of people, sometimes it is shame. They don't tell people what's going on. I don't have that in me personally, and I can only speak for myself, but I will say this much: God can deliver anybody. Like, nobody is too far from grace. You haven't fallen too far. Coming from that kind of background, I mean, we've all tripped and we've all stumbled. And there's a scripture that says, "The steps of a righteous man are ordered by God, and though he may trip, he will not fall totally asunder." Amen. No matter where I was in my life, I always had a deep love for God. In everything. I know he kept me safe. He kept me through it. He provided for my wife and I to live a life that I thought would be impossible several years ago. And, just realizing that you have that openness and that freedom to be who you are, who you are made to be, that releases you for so much. Like, I don't control my wife at all. My wife doesn't control me. I don't like people trying to control me at all. I used to be very rebellious towards that. And I could say that something like that has really helped me to stand out in a way to where God has made me bolder in some regards. Sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's not so good, but just be open, like release yourself from, other people's expectations. That's one thing that I don't ever do. My wife is put her under expectation for myself. I allow her to be who God created her to be. And I enjoy the beauty of what God created her to be, because he created her for me. Like, I prayed for this person. I received this person by the grace of God. And just the beauty of watching her grow and watching her blossom as I continue to grow has been an amazing journey. And I know one thing that's going to be amazing when we do have children. When we do have children, whenever that day comes, don't comment, Dad. Don't say nothing. Nobody say nothing.
It is what it is.
I heard it last time you said it.
Be fruitful and multiply. That's what God said.
Point being, whenever the children I do intend to allow them, to experience the love of God, but also explore freedom to be who they are made to be and enjoy that journey. So I look forward to joining you guys on the journey of fatherhood of my brother, motherhood of my wife, and then seeing where the family goes.
Parenting is a lifetime, never ends, even up to this very moment.
That's why I'm on the fence.
Lifetime. All right, we're gonna get ready to close out this segment, and I'm gonna let you all close this out. Sister Levert says that you all had some great answers. Elder Moore again says the sharing of new and normal parents and households and navigating being connected while parenting and doing what you have to do to make it work. Sister Petrushka says awesome examples of God being in the middle. And Elder Prince Henderson Moore says again, thank you a lot for sharing. May God continue to bless you as your conversation has blessed others. So you have been a blessing to others this evening. And I'm grateful for your transparency and your availability, because I know that each of you are busy in one way or another. And so, again, bringing it back to the foundation of friendship, and each of you, because of where you are in relationships, your friendship, your specific aspect of friendship, your emphasis of friendship, being friends, what that means for you at this point in your life, and then we'll close out. So Evo and Diop, you've already kind of, I think you've definitely spoken to that. So let me go to Lewis, then Zalik, and then I'm gonna close it out with baby sis saying what she's dealing with as relates to friendship.
Can you repeat the question one more time, Daddy? Sorry.
So friendship, what is friendship for you, for the both of you, and how do you see it continuing to evolve as you mature together? And how critical is that? And being equally yoked in a sense, being a part of this triune chord, if you will, between you two and the Lord. How does friendship factor into that?
Forgiveness keeps coming in my head. I think that I was, as you all know, I'm a knucklehead. And I've always kind of learned the hard way to an extent. So Chantel's forgiveness humbled my heart, even from the jump. I stumbled a bunch of times, and some worse than others. But somehow Chantel found it in her heart to forgive me for my mistakes. And when that occurred, it kind of just like let me know like this is the one. Like Chantel's the one. Cause as you know, like as the pastor in AME church, you're moved around a lot. And we as a family, through the divorce and through the moving around, we've been in so many different areas, dealt with so many different people. And some will deal with your stuff and some won't. And I think we've all seen both sides of that coin. And for Chantel to be able to do that was just amazing to me. That showed me what true friendship is. The same friendship that Jesus and God gives us every day. Continue to forgive us for our shortcomings and our mistakes. So I think through that friendship is what held me together. Held us together. Helped me to hold us together. Yeah.
Chantel?
When speaking of friendship, I think about how much fun I have with Lewis all the time. I know he's the whole party. He is the whole party. No, we didn't really. I know Asa and Evelyn spoke about laughter, but you also have to have fun. You have to take time. We're parents, and you have to take that time to have fun with each other without the children. It's very important. So as far as our friendship, we just have fun, and that really helps our relationship. Thanks to COVID-19, we have flourished. We've gotten to know each other even more because, as you know, in marriage, you grow and you change, and with having children and with age, you just change. So we've gotten to know each other, and we're better friends. I can say that this is my best friend ever. BFF forever. But yeah, it just having fun. Just please, I don't know who's out there listening. Have fun. Have fun.
Grandma takes me.
Hey, Grandma.
She texts me
through it all. We love you, Grandma. Sorry.
All right, thank you. Thank you. All right, so Jalik, at this point in your life, as you say you're open for a new friendship, friendship at this point is important to you. How is that? How are you experiencing that? What standards do you have in terms of that kind of friendship?
Honestly, one of the friendship, I think the way I approach it right now is making what I want and what I'm doing clear in the beginning, like where I am, and then inviting partnership in that. And the thing that I really feel most like in my head to talk about is the issue of like sex, because that's one thing that Jovi and I, when we first got together. Hey, Asa?
Knocked his picture out.
That's up from talking.
When Jovi and I first got together, that was one of the biggest proponents of our relationship was sex. And I think that that's something that kept us together longer than we should have been together. And then, of course, the result of that was the pregnancy, which then resulted in a marriage, you know. So in going around this time, that's something that I'm not willing to have to be able to. It's also what broke, I mean, there are many things that broke our marriage, but the lack of control, you know, I think when you practice abstinence and celibacy in the dating part, I think God is able to break that yoke before you join together. And so the man is able to practice dying to self, which is what he's supposed to do in marriage. And so I think there's a blessing to marriages that come out of that you lose or you forfeit when you don't do it in that way. And that's what God's been leading me to. And so when I'm talking to someone, I make that very clear from the beginning, that that's what I'm doing. And of course, some men see it as a challenge. Oh, okay, you know, let me see how, it's like a little red flag. But the friend I have now, we talked about it often and we're on the same page. And that's what I appreciate. And it's not just me doing it, it's you're doing this and let me figure out how to help you do this thing. And so we talk about boundaries and limits. And I think that's a big thing, like friendship in that, where I know where you're trying to go and I want to walk with you in it. I don't want to take away from it. I want to support you in what you want to do. And to me, honestly, the hardest thing is sex. It's so normal. It's normalized now, which is what you do. It's, you know, whatever. And so to be with someone, talk to someone who can see the value of a relationship outside of that, I think is huge. That's a really big thing to me. But yeah, all that to say, friendship to me is being able to talk about everything. And even when we're disagreeing, we're still talking. You know, how do we work through our disagreements? And when I'm sharing something with you that I want to do, how are you responding to that? Are you able to partner with me? And then do we have fun, you know, and the balance. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I appreciate that and your transparency in that respect. That may be part of what we talk about, what I'll talk about next week. And if you all are available, you're welcome to, you're like, oh, a ham sandwich, you know, there's no way in the world I'm coming back on this format.
You want us to do this again?
Nicole.
It's a different subject matter, I'm sure.
Huh?
We support our own, y'all. We support our
It's Wednesday. That's fine. Yeah, Dad.
Friendship. How is friendship a factor? How is it an important factor at this point for you as a single woman who's in a loving relationship, as you have said, and it's okay. I understand.
But friendship is really important. Like, he was my friend first. The biggest thing that attracts me to him is his intelligence. The boy is so smart. He is so well versed in so many different things, and he's always continuing learning. So I'm always learning something from him. He's learning something from me, which leads to us having like really great conversation, transparency in regards to our family systems. Really having that conversation of what is it? What are the dynamics within your families? Because that leads to how people either communicate with each other or love each other. Right. Kind of having those honest conversations, even when we were just friends, just having those conversations, and accountability. Because there's been some moments where he's kind of like, okay, Nicole, reel it in a little bit. And then when I've kind of did some checking within myself, I'm like, okay, cool. He actually cares about me. He doesn't want me to make decisions. I might not even see that far in advance, but he's seeing things in the future. And he's kind of like, okay, you know, be mindful with that. That's important to me in a friendship. And also having fun. Life is already stressful. I don't have time for the doom and gloom 24/7. Like, let's do some things that are fun. We both love to skate. With COVID, we haven't been able to go back to the skating rink, but there's certain things that we actually like to do. We go for walks together around the apartment complex. It's just a way for us to please, Jalee. It's a way for us to reconnect, and it not be, you know, all lovey-dovey, but it's just down with each other.
Don't let her tease you. She walks around with that dude, whatever his name is, too. So whatever.
And they ride
bikes. He walks with him too. Young man. His name is Justin. Okay, we could the lovely
she walks around with. She walks around.
Yes,
with
Justin, neighbor Bay.
What's his name?
I need some popcorn.
Is he on the
She
show?
walks around with what's his name?
His name is Justin,
Don't let her make
Dad.
you feel like.
Don't listen.
Text you later because I neighbor babe. Okay, all right.
Yeah, that's an offline conversation.
Absolutely.
How dare you, Father?
I don't. Well, that's first of all. Don't let me pull up on the fact that I have not been introduced. So let me not go there.
Oh, wait till that happens.
Let's
wait,
not
come
even
next
do
week.
that.
Come next week.
But you go ahead, Nicole. Finish, please.
Gotta give it to it. Why would she introduce him to you until she has vetted him enough to make sure he is good enough to be in your presence? We can't keep in your presence and they don't mean anything. So you gotta kind of give it to her. She's being smart. She's taking her time and she is vetting him. So when she brings him into your presence, he is of quality. I'm not mad.
So don't trip when I don't know his name.
Oh Lord.
Justin.
By the way, I want you to know that the way that you just described what you do with Terrence has helped someone who's asked, well, how do you date in the time of COVID? And so that was really helpful to say. I want you all to know you've been very helpful to those who are watching. And they said, say that, Nicole. So they.
I got one more thing. Hold on, Miss Tarek. I have one more thing.
Yes, go right ahead. Go right ahead.
I just got an air fryer for my birthday, and so we've been planning like meals that we're going to make, healthy meals, because we're getting away from fried foods or like the really heavy processed foods. So we've been coming up with ideas of how we're going to cook in home, like at his apartment, and also we're getting a greenhouse so we can start to grow our own herbs there.
Oh,
so
herbs.
Kind of being self-sufficient.
Not herb. Not.
I mean, like oregano and basil and thyme, what have you. But like
thyme and rosemary.
Yes.
And rosemary. Yes.
Rosemary.
Not cannabis.
Yeah, give me a break. Jeez, Asa.
Well, yeah, it's okay. Well, they're more or less, they're having flashbacks. They're having flashbacks, so sorry.
Yikes.
All right, so
I'm praying for y'all.
Well, let me thank all of you for being able and willing to be together. I know that this was different from what you expected. You probably thought it was going to be kind of whacked, and to some degree, that's a part of the conversation, and that's why it's good for it to be sort of improvisational and impromptu and free-flowing. And so I appreciate very much your willingness to be transparent. And I want to thank those who are streaming with us this evening, and for the hundreds of those of you who will be a part of not only Instagram, you heard it, you couldn't see it, but you could hear it, and those who are on Facebook Live, Periscope, YouTube Live, and on I'm sorry.
Satellite. What else, Dad? What else?
I'm
just on MySpace.
On the platforms.
The world.
Nah, I'm just learning.
The world.
I'm learning. Yes,
Who
so your
opened them up
business
to all this?
is out across the universe. Everybody in the universe now knows.
He has too much time on his hands.
Oh God.
What's that?
You know, Dad. He gonna grind. Too much time.
I'm just trying to do what I do. I'm just trying.
Hold up, Luke.
I'm just learning. I'm learning.
Luke, you didn't tell us what's necessary in a friendship.
I know you didn't give us your perspective.
Tell us.
Pastor.
What is your
Well, no, I did because I'm the one that actually posed. If you recall, my initial statement was that was the very thing that was lacking or had been extremely wanting. Unfortunately, in terms of the children's mother, our work schedules were whacked and crazy. She worked nights. They were called, and we had little time together in many respects. And I won't go much further into that part in terms of the working.
But I'm talking about now. It's important as a friendship to you now, as you've gotten older and matured.
Yeah.
Well, I understand how critical friendship is, and in reference to getting to know my intended. I really find it important to be able to talk to whoever that person would be, whoever that person is, about anything, and to be able to share and that person get to know me not as a pastor, not as an AME preacher, but as a person. One of the things that was really hurtful in the most recent marriage was the fact that it was more about the status and more about the church than about me. And conversation was more with others than with me. And that really was problematic for me. I thrive on being able to communicate and have conversation. And I love an intelligent conversation. I love an adult conversation. I like someone who's well-versed that can talk about anything. I don't want to always talk about church. I don't always talk about religion or the, AME church. I want to talk about I have a lot of other interests. And so, those have been critical criterion for me and filters. And so I have friends that I talk to, and we're just, we're friends. And I don't, so I'm learning how just to be friends and a friend to myself also, because I think you have to be able to love yourself and recognize your worth so that you're not treated you're treated in the way that you should be treated. Someone that talks to you respectfully, you send them a text and they send it back to you within the millennium, within that millennium, or something like that, or they call you back. Just the basics of respect. Friendship was really you have to again be a friend to yourself, and so that has been a part of, I think, to a great extent, the structure, as you have said, moving around and going from place to place was really a strain on my marriages. I think that I didn't recognize the extent to which that was an effect on my wives. And a lot of AME preachers were probably living in hell in some ways because of the erratic nature of it. It takes a special type of a woman, a person, to really deal with a itinerant preacher, a person whose livelihood necessitates having to up and move from time to time, away from family, away from friends. And if you're not friends and you're away from family, it isolates you even more because you weren't talking before and you're not going to talk much, after that. And so I experienced that firsthand. It was challenging, but I'm hoping to kind of slow walk it and walk it like I talk it.
Get out of my head.
Okay.
And just sort of, when that time, I think it's like you just know it when you'll know it when you see it. You know it when you see it. So we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
My daughter, so I don't know what to do with her. So I want to thank you all for joining us in this conversation. And our theme in our series is friends and someone's talking about friends with benefits. And the only thing I mean by that is the benefits of friendship at various stages in our relationship. The benefit. Next time, I think we may talk about if you desire to come back, what benefits you really see at this level of your relationship. So thank you so much again for being on. Thank you for the extended time, Diop and Evo. I appreciate it very much. And Lewis and Chantel and Jalik and my sister Nicole, God bless you. I know it's going to be a different look next week if you come back on.
Yeah, I'm actually shaving my head next week. So yeah, you're right.
Oh, you're shaving your head next week.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah.
My sister.
Take it to the house. All right. Would any of you like to lead us in prayer before we go?
Lewis. Lewis.
All right. Heavenly Father, we just thank you and praise you for the opportunity to come together as a family, Lord God. Lord God, this is a long time overdue conversation, but Lord God, we thank you for the platform to do it. Lord God, we thank you for this opportunity to give you time to maneuver in our lives, Lord God. And may we continue to grow in friendship amongst each other, amongst our relationships, and amongst those around us. So God, thank you for the family you've given us. Thank you for the friends you've given us. We pray blessings upon all of them and all of us, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
Amen.
Okay.
All right. Love you all. Thank you so much again.
All right.
God bless you.
Love you guys.
Grateful that our friendship survived this session together.
Yes, indeed.
All right. God bless you.
God bless you too.
All right, love you guys.
Love you guys.
Hey, Candace. Hey, LaShawn. Hey, Tiffany. Hey, everybody. Love you all.
Goodbye. Bye-bye.
Wait, Dad, did you turn it off? Are we still recording?
Yeah, I think we're still on.
Yes.
Now I'm ending the live feed as we speak.
I have questions.
Just a second. Just a second. Let me end the live.
Don't worry, I'll wait.
I was trying to get off, but
just a second. Let me end
Hey, Juan, Candace,
YouTube,
Jabril,
everybody.
Yo, Fifi was on here too. Life's on here.
Aww.
We love Fifi.
Yeah, I did a little party thing.